Happy Wednesday, everyone. My name is Yiling Zhuang. I'm the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent in University of Florida IFAS Extension. Welcome to the Water Wednesday. Water Wednesday is a webinar series about Florida's precious resource, water. Every Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, we live stream a 30-minute talk about Florida's water and what we can do to protect it. We host our webinar on Zoom and broadcast to Facebook Live. We have attendees joining us all over the country. Please put in the chat box and tell us where you are watching this webinar. If you are viewing on Facebook, please be aware of scammers. This webinar series is free. Please do not click any links that are not posted by the admin. We have a theme for every month. This month, we focus on hurricane preparedness. In last two Water Wednesdays, we went through some general hurricane preparedness tips and also went through how to DIY your own emergency water supplies. If you missed these talks, I will put the link in the chat box so you can read our recap blogs and watch the recordings. This week, we will switch the gear and discuss how to care your landscape before and after a storm. Our guest speaker for today is Ms. Amanda Merrick. She is the Florida-friendly landscaping agent in UF IFAS Extension, Marion County. Now, let's welcome Amanda.
Good afternoon, everybody. There you go. It's great to see you. Thank you, Elin, for inviting me to do this program today. Let me go ahead and share the screen. All right, can everybody see that okay?
It's the presenter view.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Stop share. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, it was a weird screen. Okay.
It looks great.
Better? Perfect. Okay, perfect. Good. All right, so landscaping before and after the storm. Like Elin mentioned, my name is Amanda Merrick. I'm the Florida Friendly Landscaping Agent for UF IFAS Marion County Extension. So welcome anybody from Marion County. Hi, this is your agent. I'm one of many here at the Marion County Extension Service, which is located in Ocala, right next to the Livestock Pavilion. So any of you in Marion who have questions specific to your lawn or landscape, please feel free to reach out to me after the program and we'll be happy to help. So this topic, which is very pertinent to now, is landscaping before and after the storm, since we are indeed in hurricane season, which, if you are curious, is officially June 1st, my mom's birthday. So it's always hurricane season, mom's birthday, yay, to actually November 30th. First time I heard that, I was like, wow, hurricanes can actually, the season doesn't even end until almost December, which is crazy to think about. So there are some definitions just quickly to run through. Tropical storms typically have 39-mile-per-hour winds or higher. Once you get into the 74-mile-per-hour range, that's when you get into the hurricanes. Important thing to note here is both can be accompanied by rain, lightning, hail, flooding, and tornadoes. So even if you don't have the wind damage, it is very, very likely that you'll get rain and potentially flooding too. So the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. Now this you can take with a grain of salt. Sometimes it's pretty accurate. Other years they are really, really far off. But this is the prediction for this year. If you are curious, it's a 60% chance that it'll be above normal active year, 30% chance it'll be near normal. Now last year we had an insane hurricane season. And I think all but maybe one actually hit Florida. We got lucky many, many, many times. So they are predicting this year 3 to 5 major hurricanes, which would be like this category 3 and up. So what can you guys do to prepare your landscape? So we're going to go over how I divided this up, or things that you should do months prior, I mean, even like a year prior to a hurricane. Days prior, what you should do during the storm, and then how you can help your landscape after the storm. So months before we know a hurricane is coming, and that's the one thing I do prefer with hurricanes. You usually do have at least a few days notice. So don't wait until that point. You want to make sure you get this done now. Okay, don't wait until a hurricane is coming. Get your trees inspected. The two that we are most concerned about are laurel oaks and water oaks, especially anywhere near your house, 15, 20 feet, maybe even 30 feet out from your home. It is really, really highly recommended to have a certified, ISA certified arborist come out and take a look at your trees, particularly if they're laurel oaks or water oaks, which are notorious for falling on houses, especially during high wind and rain events. The rule of thumb, according to Florida Friendly Landscaping, which is research-based, based on science, the rule is to keep trees at least 15 feet from foundations. So if you have a tree that's closer to your home, it's highly recommended that you have a certified arborist at least come through, prune out some branches that are hitting the home particularly, or branches that could pose a hazard to health, to people, property, etc. Okay, and then of course remove those trees. I do have a list at the end of helpful resources, and this here that you see is the actual website to find an ISA certified arborist. It's very easy to remember, treesaregood.org. So one of the easiest ones to remember. And there you can take a look at arborists in your area. If you're very particular and concerned about risk, there are actually arborists that have a special certification just for risk. Now, the one point that I will definitely emphasize, if you get a certified arborist, hopefully this won't be an issue, but avoid what's called hurricane pruning and lion tails, which is this. So the picture on the left, this is severe hurricane pruning on palm trees. Way back when they thought, this was the ideal way to prune a palm to prepare for a storm. Well, research came out to say otherwise. These palms, what you want to protect is the heart, which is the bud right at the tippy top of the palm trees. With these, the heart is completely exposed. So if we have a lot of winds, like during a hurricane, the heart of those palms are completely exposed to wind damage. So more often than not, these palms would not survive a heavy category 3+ hurricane. So what you ideally want, both for the health of the palm and for hurricane preparation, is to keep a nice full 360-degree canopy. Nutrient deficiency is very, very common in palm trees. So keeping your palm as healthy as possible is also best to help them survive a wind event. So only pruning fronds that are completely dead, brown and all, okay? Lion's tailing, this is also called hat racking. This is very, very dangerous. There's actually some trees just down from our office, a business that had their trees severely lion-tailed. And you can just see it during even a normal summer storm. You'll see the tops of those branches swaying severely. Now, you might think, okay, well, this might actually be good pruning. But however, if you look at the physiology of this tree, where is all of the weight? It's at the very end of those branches. So with this severe pruning, you get a lot of weight right at the end. And that is very, very likely to end up snapping and breaking limbs or causing what's called entire tree decline or tree catastrophe, where the entire tree can actually split, which is a big problem. Ideally, you would have pruners that would keep all of this vegetation on the lower ends of the branches, so the tips aren't what's taking the full blunt of the wind. In the days before a storm, okay, so now we know that one is coming. This is the time to go out and definitely check the drainage around your property. Clear out storm drains, any tree debris, trash, etc. The swale, which is that low-lying area that's usually between houses or maybe even the front of your property, but between your house and the road, those are called swales. it is actually building code that those should be grass only. So if you have trees or any other type of landscaping growing in those swales, that can severely impede the flow of water. And those areas are meant to drain. So keep those areas clear of any plants, big woody weeds, debris, and keep them mowed properly to allow that water to drain where you want it to. Before the storm, we know that it's very likely one's going to come. Don't leave debris in a yard. Even something as simple as a piece of wood this big can actually be very deadly once it's picked up by 200-mile-per-hour winds. Okay, so do not leave piles of debris in your yard if you know a storm is coming soon. Just similar to the drainage, make sure you inspect and clean out your gutters so you don't end up with some roof damage. Disconnect and empty any rain barrels. So if you have a rain barrel connected to a gutter system, disconnect it and place it in a secure location. If it's full of water, drain it first, obviously, and then move it indoors. If you have bare soil, which can happen if you are re-landscaping a part of your landscape, or if you've got, perhaps a new development, if you can cover the bare soil to really reduce the erosion, that would be ideal. And very important for a topic we'll get into here in a second, which is fungal diseases, turn off your irrigation. The last thing your plants and your landscape are going to need is more water. In the days before your storm, walk around your property and make sure you take down and secure any lawn ornaments, any furniture, hanging baskets, flags, flag poles, etc. Okay, so anything that can become a projectile and dangerous when it's picked up by the wind. Okay, also trellising. Okay, yeah, beautiful trellises, but make sure they're secure, because if they fall over, not only is that potentially a danger, it can also severely kill or damage your plants that they are growing on or that are under that trellis. Tree skid staking. We can spend an entire day just talking about how to properly stake a tree. So if the tree is newly planted, less than a year old, or if it has a weak root ball, we do recommend you stake. This system you see down at the bottom is called root stabilization, or a root stabilizer. This is a relatively new way of staking trees, but it has shown to be very, very promising, and it's very effective. So if you can, the root stabilization is preferred. If you can't get a landscaper or whoever to help you do that, the biggest thing is, if you are using a stake for a tree, make sure it has a flexible strap. I say this from experience. We had a neighbor who spent quite a bit of money planting an entire row along their long driveway, multiple bottle brush trees. Okay, we had a new young tree and they had a whole row of brand new bottle brush trees, just a couple months old, and then we knew a hurricane was coming. Most of those trees, I think all but two, ended up snapping. The entire canopy just snapped right where that trellising cord was holding onto them. The trellising material that they were using had no give whatsoever. Whereas our new baby tree that we did not trellis, that thing was whipping back and forth, but it never broke. And that was what it was designed to do, okay? So very important point here is, you are going to use some type of trellising material. If it's not the root stabilizing, use a flexible material that has some give, so you avoid that issue like my neighbor had, okay? The biggest thing that I want to emphasize during a storm, please stay inside, okay? That is the one thing I have for this slide, is stay inside. You might see, a tree uprooted, a plant that's totally destroyed. It's not going to make a difference at that point. Your biggest thing for you right now is to stay inside and stay safe. Even on the topic of, your generator, making sure if you do have a generator or plan to use one, that it's ready to go before the storm hits. My husband was actually just telling me a story that he almost got hit by a flagpole, a pretty good sized flagpole a few years ago. Went out to help his folks, his parents. They did not have the generator set up. Went outside, wind, rain, lightning, everything else, and almost got hit in the head with a flagpole trying to get the generator set up. So you might see, some devastation in your yard, but please stay inside. Like I said, even a small projectile can become dangerous in these weather systems. All right, so after the storm, all right, assess the damage. The things you're going to want to look for, particularly any uprooted or damaged roots, broken stems and branches, windburn and defoliation, changes in light conditions, which can lead to scorch and sunburn, any washed away mulch, and diseased grass. So let's go ahead and dive into those. So for older established trees, and with trees is anything over 2 years old is considered established. If it's been in the ground for many years, decades, it's a big, old, mature tree. If they are completely uprooted, it is very, very unlikely, unfortunately, that those trees will recover. In actuality, those trees are very likely to become a major issue, a safety hazard in the future. So make sure if any old established trees become completely unrooted or mostly uprooted, it really is best to remove them, okay? Rot and decay can easily set in even where you can't see it, which is why water oaks and laurel oaks are so dangerous. They can get rot within the center of the tree and not show any symptoms whatsoever in the canopy. That's what makes them so dangerous. Also, if you do try to, prop it back up and fix it, they're still very unstable in future storms. So it's overall just best to remove them entirely. Younger trees, those are that have been in the ground less than 2 years, it is possible to salvage them, but you do need to replant that tree as soon as possible. Don't go out in the storm, okay? Key thing, do not go out in the storm. Wait until everything is clear. One thing, if you've never been in a hurricane, you might be fooled by the eye. If the eye ever comes over you directly, you'll literally, it's the strangest thing. The wind will stop, the rain will stop, the skies even made clear, but that is when you are in the eye of the storm. And you might think, oh, all is well. And then suddenly the other side of that eye comes and it can sometimes even be worse. So wait until the storm has completely passed, go out there and you can prop them up as soon as possible. If it's not possible to get it replanted soon, at least keep the roots covered. One recommendation I saw was to get like wet burlap or a wet sheet and or dirt if you can, but if that's not feasible, like in this case, something like a wet sheet will help keep those roots moist so they don't start dying, okay? And the biggest thing, if you have to prop a new tree back up, if it's been uprooted, treat it like a brand new tree, which means you're going to have to be out there watering it pretty regularly up until about 2 years of age when it is well established. The first few months are critical. You really should be out there, every other day in the first few months to keep it watered. After, about a year, 6 months to a year, unless we're under a severe drought condition, just go out there once or twice a week. That should be sufficient, okay? But treat it like a brand new tree if it has been completely uprooted. Similarly with air pockets. Now, this may not always be quite so obvious. This one obviously is, but air pockets, when the tree is swaying so dramatically, you can get air pockets around the roots under the ground, and that can create obviously dry roots that can die back. So look for signs of root damage up to a year or more after the storm. Okay, sometimes it's not immediate. It's not something you would expect. So up to a year or more, watch for wilting, dropping leaves, which might indicate that the roots are damaged. Look for signs of root rot from flooding. The roots will literally be black and sometimes have a bad smell to them because they are literally rotting. And then, of course, have your trees inspected if you're concerned for risk by an ISA certified arborist, okay? If you did notice, you looked outside your window and you saw those trees swaying really, really badly, it's not a bad idea, once the storm has passed, to go out there, put in some soil, especially if you can see visible pockets, and then water those trees. If, of course, it's not already flooded, water those in to help with those air pockets that you may not see. It's also important, do not fertilize root damaged trees. The fertilizers have salts, and the salt, when it comes in contact with the bare root, can actually cause burn and more damage. The tree is also already very, very stressed. It's trying to get itself reestablished. You don't want to stress it out more by encouraging it to put out new growth when it doesn't have the root system to do it, okay? So wait a year at least until you fertilize those root damaged trees. All right, so after the storm, any broken branches, any tears, it is best, just like when you get a cut, you know, it's best for, you know, a doctor to do an actual clean cut with a scalpel versus, you know, a bad tear. Use sharp, clean pruners to cleanly cut any broken branches. The important thing here is make sure you leave the collar. Trees are really cool. They have some really unique cells in what's called the collar, which is down here, that swollen area at the base of most trees. Not all trees have this, but many do. That swollen area at the base of the branch is called a collar. And in that collar are some very special cells that'll help that tree heal itself, okay? So when you are pruning it out, don't do a flush cut with the trunk. Leave that collar there so that tree can actually heal itself and cover that wound. Otherwise, open wounds are a great invitation for pests and diseases to come in, okay? If it's a large branch, it is very, very important to cut it in multiple chunks, okay? From the out, so say this is the trunk, you want to cut the outside branch first and then slowly make your way in, so you're taking away some of that weight. If you were just to make 1 or 2 cuts in that big branch, you're very likely to cause tearing right down the base, the trunk of that tree. And that, again, anytime you have an open wound is a great invitation for pest and disease, okay? Disinfect your pruning equipment. This is really important for palm trees. We have many palm diseases and pests, unfortunately. Several of those diseases are carried by infected pruning equipment. Okay, so fusarium wilt, there's several, Ganoderma, more than I can venture to guess right now. There's many palm diseases that are quite lethal, no cure, that are carried in by infected pruning equipment. So if you yourself are doing it, or if a landscaper is, definitely, at least between each tree, making sure they're, you know, submerging it in an alcohol or bleach water solution, or spraying it down with, you know, some type of disinfectant. If more than 1/3 of the canopy or all of the branches are gone on a tree, or even, you know, a shrub, it really is probably best to remove it. Many plants can survive with, you know, at least 1/3 of their canopy still intact. But if they've lost, you know, more than that, or if it's practically all gone or broken, if it does survive, it won't be attractive. It'll always have this oddball looking scraggly growth. So it may be in the best interest to just go ahead and remove it. So this is what I was mentioning with the wind burn and defoliation, which is caused by exposure to high winds. So just like you and I, plants can also get sunburn, and they can get wind burn. It's very, very similar physiology, very similar symptoms. This was actually a picture here of a sea grape. After Hurricane Irma, for several months after Hurricane Irma came through, folks began to notice that the sea grape and many other bushes, especially close to the coast, were slowly over time turning brown and losing all of their leaves. And of course, panic set in. It came to actually be wind burn from the high winds, the high sustained winds from Hurricane Irma. This leaf here was actually that maple tree, our little baby maple tree I was telling you about that was whipping back and forth. Sure enough, the next day I went out there and it had wind burn as well, which was indicated here on those brown spots. It'll lose its leaves. The leaves will drop. It's totally natural. Most plants recover just fine with time. If it's a younger tree, it's going to be a lot more stressful for them. But again, only time will tell. Make sure you're giving it water if it's less than a year old. And don't fertilize if it has any damage to those roots. Any severely damaged or broken branches, prune them out. And if you're curious to know if a branch has life, just gently scrape the outer bark off of a stem or a trunk. If the tissue underneath is green, it's still alive, okay? That it can be a little deceiving, especially after windburn when all of those leaves have fallen off. If you're curious to know if that branch is still alive, go and scrape off the tissue. If it's still green underneath, more than likely with time, it'll put out new buds and new growth. Okay, so similarly, plants can get sunburn, which is also called scorch. If you have a large shade tree, for example, and it either got severely damaged or has fallen during the storm, all of those plants, including your lawn, that were under that shade are now totally exposed to full sun. Anytime there is a drastic, sudden change to the environment, the plants are going to freak out. They're like, what's going on? You'll have plants pouting. You'll have plants just totally just looking completely stressed out because their environment that they can't run away from has totally changed very, very suddenly. So if you see this, this is a picture of what's called the sunburn or the scorch, from being in shade to suddenly full sun. Usually, if the plant is adaptable to sun or shade conditions, it will pout, it'll lose its leaves. But if the plant is suitable for full sun, more often than not, it'll lose its leaves, it'll adapt, and it'll grow out new leaves that are better established for sun. I just had this happen to one of my camellia bushes. I planted it in a nice shady spot, which they prefer. The power company came through, trimmed the trees, and now my poor camellia is in full sun. It lost all of its leaves, got severe sun scorch and leaf burn. I've been out watering it regularly to help it along, and sure enough, it's got new growth that has adapted to sunnier conditions. It'll take time. It won't be immediate, but it can happen. However, if the plants are meant for shade, if you did the research, you read the plant tag, call us if you're not certain on which plants are shade, which plants can tolerate both. If your plant is definitely for shade and for shade only, it'll either die or need to be transplanted to a shadier spot. If it's already well established and older, it's a 50-50 chance if it'll survive transplanting, but it's probably going to die anyway if kept in that full sunny condition, okay? If your grass has gone from shade to full sun, you will definitely need to adjust the watering and the mowing. So I included a chart down here of all of the long grasses we have. All of them prefer full sun, okay? However, the dwarf St. Augustine grasses and regular St. Augustine grass can tolerate more shade than the others. The zoysia, it says that it has relatively good shade tolerance, but don't believe it, that's a lie. Okay, so all of them want full sun. Of all of our grasses, the St. Augustine and the dwarf St. Augustine especially can tolerate more shade, okay? So if suddenly, the tree fell, grass is in full sun, it'll definitely need a little bit extra water, and you'll probably have to be mowing it more frequently too, since it'll be growing more in the full sun, okay? And we can help you with all of those questions. I work a lot with lawns, so if you have lawn issues, I'm your person, okay? So after the storm, more than likely your mulch has washed away somewhere. Melaleuca mulch is one that we like to promote. Melaleuca mulch, which is that funky looking word there, it is actually an invasive exotic tree harvested out of South Florida. It is known to not float away as bad as some of the others, but I will tell you, in a deluge and in a hurricane, everything floats, okay? So don't be surprised after, a heavy rain event, especially near the end of gutters, you might need to go back out and get some fresh organic mulches. The research shows that a good depth for weed suppression is 2 to 3 inches, okay? Any deeper than that, yeah, it's gonna, keep the weeds back, but you're kind of wasting your money. Any less than 2 inches, you're gonna start to get more weeds popping up, okay? Every time you have plants, we always recommend organic mulches around your plant beds. The best at weed suppression is actually pine straw, followed closely by pine bark, melaleuca, and eucalyptus. The benefit to the melaleuca and the eucalyptus, they both put out oils and scents that termites absolutely hate. So especially near the foundation of your home, make sure you have termite protection regardless of your house, but the melaleuca and the eucalyptus are known to actually repel termites. Use rock sparingly, like under the drip line or along a walkway or a driveway, what have you. Okay. Important too to avoid this. This down here is called volcano mulching. We don't want to see volcano mulching. Okay. That is when they literally pile the mulch at the base of a tree, usually, sometimes a shrub even, that holds moisture at the roots, and it also suffocates those roots that need to breathe. So keep that mulch, 10 inches or so from the trunks of your trees, a few inches from the base of the plants. And what we usually get calls on after the storm, those lawn diseases. Promptly remove any large fallen limbs, large piles of debris that can suffocate, shade out the grass underneath it. Flooding, waterlogged soils can really lead to root rots, pests, other fungal diseases. So make sure you turn off that irrigation. Honestly, in the summer rainy season, you probably don't need to be watering much at all. Once a week, if that, water on an as needed basis is always recommended. So turn that irrigation off if you're in a severely compacted area, which is very common in many of these neighborhoods. Aeration is also very helpful, once or twice a year, spring through fall, that's beneficial. If you do suspect fungal disease, or if your landscaper has confirmed it, that's where fungicides would help. Okay, so let us know. We can give you a whole list of recommendations if you do end up with some fungal pathogens in your lawns. Okay. And lastly, if it comes time that you do actually need to replace some of your plants, hey, that's what we're here for. We've got plenty of books. We have myself, we do site visits. We can give you one-on-one recommendations to help you pick plants best for your site, okay? Using, of course, these 9 Florida-friendly landscaping principles, beginning with right plant, right place, okay? And that can include actually hurricane, wind-resistant trees. So these resources here that we've shared with you have some wonderful information, including this hurricane landscaping link, which is on our Gardening Solutions website. It has a link to wind-resistant trees, especially, again, 15 feet from your house, but that has some great resources. All of these links have some great resources to help you prepare before and after a hurricane, okay? If you have any questions, there I am with my phone number and email, as well as our address. We keep a lot of our events posted, and we regularly post to our Marion County Master Gardener Facebook page. So if you're not already a friend, go ahead and friend us, and you'll stay in the loop for future programs that we have. But other than that, if you're a Marion County resident, I'd love to hear from you and help you out with your lawn and your landscape. And any questions that came up, Ms. Heelan?
Excuse me. Yes, we do have a question here. Before I read out this question, would you please post these links? You shared additional resources. Would you put in the chat box so easy for them to grab?
Oh, I can try to do that. Is there, let me see. Don't know if I can't copy inside. I can get out of the PowerPoint and then do it that way.
Yeah, would you mind? Yeah, yep. That will be much help. Like it will be a great help.
All right, I can do that. So, any other questions?
We do here. It's in previous slides you mentioned secure, like you need to secure the trees, secure a landscape. What do you exactly mean by secure?
So secure things like your trellis, like if it's on the side of your house just sitting there, making sure that it is screwed into something or has really deep metal rods that is holding that trellis in place. By securing like your flag poles and things like that, laying them on the ground or preferably storing them in a good location. That's what we mean by securing, making sure there's somewhere that they're not going to fly off or fall on top of something.
Great. Thank you. I realized I have your presentation. I could post it. Silly
That's
me.
all right. I gotcha.
Thank you,
And the
Amanda.
staking is a whole nother topic. So definitely I'd highly recommend visiting these links to dive into more detail with the staking. Just really make sure it is a flexible material so you don't end up with the breaking and the cracking of the main trunk.
Yeah, I saw something really interesting. It's you posted in the picture now for new tree, establish a new tree, how you secure the roots. It's doing more like vertical way instead of you like
Right.
pile it up.
Mhm.
That reminds me, it's one of my tree. Because we recently moved, the previous owner never took the stakes out, and everything just grew into the tree. Now we cannot even take it out.
That's the very dangerous thing with staking is people tend to forget it's there and the tree can actually start to grow into it. We actually lost 2 sugarberry trees on our property, not from the staking, but from actual fence growing into it. Once you have something physically going into that tree, it totally disrupts the flow of water and nutrients and is an open invitation to rot. So definitely if you have staking, make sure you remove it. The beauty of that root stabilization that you saw is that wood is untreated. So it's eventually going to rot away. It's nothing to worry about. You just leave it there.
Good, good. Thank you.
Yep. So all the resources are now up. Any other questions that we missed?
I think I saw a question earlier, but I don't see it now. I think that you may heard this question a lot. It's like, hey, my neighbor's tree is growing so big and it's growing over my yard. What should I do?
I'm very glad you asked that question. So first and foremost, if it's not your tree, there is nothing anybody can do, okay? It is actually a reinforced new law that ISA certified arborists cannot touch your neighbor's tree. They can't even talk to you about your neighbor's tree. It has to be the owner of that tree calling the certified arborist to come out there, okay? Also, if it's over your property, whatever is in your property is your property. So even if the trunk of the tree is in your neighbor's, if part of that canopy or branches is on your property line, you have every right to prune it back. Also, if the tree happens to fall, wherever it lands on your property is your issue. It's under your insurance. It doesn't matter if that tree came from your neighbors or not. Once it's on your property line, it's your insurance and your problem. So thank you for asking that.
That's good info. I didn't know that.
Maxine is one of our certified arborists here, and she was just telling me she learned that new law, changed a couple of different ways, but she cannot even discuss a tree unless it's with the actual owner of it.
Oh, that will be interesting when it comes to hurricane preparedness.
Make friends with your neighbors before the storm.
Yes. 6 months before the storm, add that to your to-do list.
Yes, bring cookies, make good friends.
That's some great info. Thank you so much, Amanda.
You're very welcome.
Let me check again if we have any questions on our Facebook page. My computer is very slow, so let me use my phone. That's why you have to well prepared with multiple technology. I don't see.
And thank you everyone who stuck with the program. I appreciate it.
It's very informative. I learned a lot. And that's great. We don't have any questions on our Facebook or our Zoom. I think you covered all their questions.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'll let you close it out. And thank you again, everybody. And thank you, Yilin.
Thank you, Amanda. And before everyone leaves, if you are viewing us on Facebook, please give us a thumb up, like our Facebook page, like our video, and share with your friends. Next week, we will focus on a little bit different is private wells. If you are a well owner, so tune in next week to learn what you should do before and after a storm related to your private wells. With that, I thank you for all your time and hope you all have a good Wednesday afternoon. See you next Wednesday. See you. Bye.
Bye.